Story time about how my husband died and his best friend won't leave me alone. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My husband and I were married for almost a decade. During that time, we had 2 kids. And of course, his passing was completely devastating to our families. And 2 weeks after my husband died, I was still grieving. But his best friend started coming around our house a lot. First, he was very emotional. Him and my husband were best friends for about 7 years. They saw each other almost every day. Not only did they work together, but they also would go to the gym together and pretty much hang out all the time. So I know this guy really, really well. When my husband would invite him over, I never got the feeling that he liked me. I mean, sure, sometimes I caught him staring at me, but I'm beautiful, so I understand. So after my husband passed, he started coming over as in, I want to take care of you, and we would just kind of cry together. I took this as his way of trying to help my husband, you know, so I just thought he was being really sweet. But exactly 1 month after my husband passed away, he started asking me weird questions. Number 1, do you want to start dating again? Number 2, don't you feel lonely at night? Number 3, you're still so young and beautiful. You need to give yourself a chance with someone else. Mind you, I'm still grieving. To these questions, I would usually say no. Obviously, I mean, why would I even be thinking about those things? I didn't put too much mind to the questions, but a few days later, he came over after he had been at a bar. As soon as I opened the door to him, he said, "Can I kiss you?" And then he did without me saying yes. Part 2 is story time about how my dead husband's best friend won't leave me alone. Disclaimers, not my story time. Send me on Instagram. As soon as I opened the door, he asked me if he could kiss me, and I didn't say anything. And he grabbed me and just started kissing me. Of course, I pushed him away and told him that he needed to leave. That's when he said, "But you didn't say no." I told him I didn't say anything because I was shocked he would even ask me that. That's when he walked into the house without me inviting him, went straight to the fridge and opened up a beer. Then he starts yelling at me for giving him mixed signals. He says that since my husband died, all I've been doing is flirting with him. Since when is grieving flirting? I told him that he was completely wrong and that he needed to leave again. Then he said, "No, I'm not leaving here until you tell me the truth." That I was secretly in love with him and that I actually wanted to be with him. No, this wasn't funny to me at all. He was slurring his words and barely could stand up. I knew my kids were upstairs, so all I wanted to do was get him out of the house. That's when I grabbed my phone and started texting one of my other husband's best friends. I texted him 911, please come to our house now. He responded right away saying, "I'm coming over." After another minute of this guy ranting at me, I told him I was sorry for giving him mixed signals and that was never my intention, blah, blah, blah. Then he asked me out on a date. He said that he wanted to take me out and show me a good time. I said no, and I asked him to leave again, but he wouldn't. Finally, someone knocks on the door. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my dead husband's best friend won't leave me alone. Disclaimers, not my story time. Send me on Instagram. That's when he asked me out on a date and started walking closer to me. Finally, someone knocked on the door, and it was my other husband's friend who I texted to come help me. I ran over to the door quickly and I opened it. That's when my husband's best friend, who was drunk in my house asking me out on a date, forcing me to kiss him, tells the other guy that he needs to leave. So I asked the other friend if he could just take this guy home. He said, yeah, of course. And he told him, "You're drunk. I'm gonna take you home now." They left together without incident and I was really relieved. But after that, I knew to watch my back now. So here's what happened. He started texting me every now and then asking me if I wanted to go to dinner. And I would not even respond to him. And after that, he started showing up to different places I was at. For example, I go to Pilates classes 5 times a week. This place is near my house. And one day he just showed up trying to take a class. As soon as I saw him, I told the instructor and they kicked him out. That's when he came back and said that he did nothing wrong and that he deserved to be in the class too. He even paid the year up front. So they had no choice but to let him in. Instead, I left. Then he followed me outside to the parking lot and told me that I needed to relax. Said, "It's not like I'm following you," which he clearly was. I got in my car and left. That very same night, he sent me a message apologizing for acting crazy. Then he told me that all he wanted was just to be close to me and the kids. By the way, my kids really do love him. They ask about him all the time since he stopped coming over, and I don't even know what to tell them. After a few weeks of him not acting crazy, he asked me if he could come over and I said yes. Decided to invite all my husband's friends and we had a nice dinner. But again, this guy asked me out. I said no, but my best friend thinks I should give him a shot. He's good looking and rich. What do you guys think?
My current leg workout, I've been doing the 75 heart challenge, which means I've been working out twice a day for almost 20 days now. Today I started my leg. I started with Bulgarian split squats and I had 10 pounds in each hand. Then I moved on to RDLs with 25 pounds in each hand. It's important to keep your back straight, otherwise it's gonna hurt. And I did sumo squats with a 40-pound dumbbell. I've been going heavier now, which is amazing. And I did more RDLs with a single weight, and I think I was holding a 35-pound dumbbell. Not a fitness instructor, I do use an app that helps me work out. Then I do hip thrusts. It's a 50-pound dumbbell. This is the heaviest I've used in a while. Kind of hard to get in position, so be very careful when you're doing this. Obviously, start off with something light. I've been able to work my way up to 50 pounds, which I'm really impressed with myself. I did step-ups with the 10-pound dumbbell. So the 75 hard challenge means you work out twice a day. The first workout is in the gym, the second one can be a walk. And I've been eating super healthy for the fashion show. And yeah, that's it. I got a really good pump. Bye!
Story time about how I found out my husband was seeing escorts while I was pregnant. Disclaimers, it's not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. We had tried and tried for a baby, and we had a really hard time. The first 3 years of our marriage was hell. We tried so much to get pregnant, but we just couldn't do it. We went to the doctor, and that's when they told us that my husband had a little problem. So basically, he was the reason why we weren't able to get pregnant easily. Because of this, I had to undergo a lot of treatments. I started taking all this different medication, which really messed with my hormones. For the first time in my life, I got acne, I started to gain weight, and I also started getting mood swings. Unfortunately, my husband for some reason thought this was a character flaw of mine, and that basically I should just be able to control my emotions. I took him to the doctor so that the doctor could explain to him what was happening to my body. Finally, the doctor told him that everything that was happening to me was because of the medicine that I was taking for us to have kids. My husband decided to apologize to me and wanted to take me on a trip. He took me to Hawaii for 2 weeks and it was beautiful. We ended up making up and it was the best time ever. A month later, we found out that I was pregnant. My husband was the happiest I'd ever seen him. 2 weeks later, I started noticing weird things in our bank account. We started sending $5,000 to one person in particular every single month. Storytime about how I found out my husband was seeing escorts while I was pregnant. Disclaimers, not my storytime, was sent to me on Instagram. That's when I noticed that every single month he would send somebody $5,000. It had been happening for 3 months. Right away, I was suspicious. A few months back, he and I had watched a documentary about escorts. And during the documentary, he kept judging all the women and the men. You know, acting greater than thou. And as soon as I saw the payments on our bank account, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. He must have seen that documentary and been like, wow, I know I can do that. Of course he can. My husband is a 40-year-old, good-looking, wealthy man. So that's when I started investigating. I had full access to his laptop, which had all of his text messages, as well as emails. And he never bothered to change his password on any of it. I waited for him to leave to the gym and that's when I got on his laptop. And I uncovered a whole ring of escorts. Not only was he sending money to one girl through our bank account, he was paying other girls through Bitcoin. As I was crying in front of the laptop, I had the presence of mind to start adding up all the money he had spent. In only 3 months, my husband managed to spend $55,000. And from what I could gather, he had about 5 escorts. Keep in mind, he's doing all of this while I'm pregnant. So here's what I did. I managed to contact each girl and ask for the money back. And I basically threatened to expose them. One was a teacher, the other was a model, which I could contact her agency and accuse her. One was actually a stay-at-home mom who was married. Only one responded to my messages. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how I found out my husband was seeing escorts while I was pregnant. Disclaimers that on my storytime was sent to me on Instagram. Finally, one of the escorts got back to me, and she told me that she would give me all of the money back. My husband had given this girl $7,000 in the time span of 2 weeks. Then she spilled all the tea. She told me my husband had signed up to an escort website, and that he had anywhere between 10 and 15 girls. So there were other ways he was paying them, and I just didn't know about it. This is when I came to my senses. I told her she did not need to send the money back to him because it wasn't her fault. It was my husband's fault. Then this girl told me that my husband would talk bad about me to her and that they would meet up at fancy hotels, and that's when he would tell her that I was a toxic wife and that all I cared about was money. By the way, I make my own money. I told her I was pregnant and she was mortified. I gathered up all the evidence and I confronted my husband. That's when he said, finally, I don't have to hide it anymore. He told me that he didn't really think I would care. Since when? I asked him to tell me the truth and tell me how many girls he was seeing and how much money he had spent. And he confessed that he had seen over 20 girls and probably spent over $100,000. Then he asked me for a divorce. I'm kind of glad he did because I was going to divorce him anyway. I am going to get his money and raise our child on our own. His family is trying to convince me otherwise though. What should I do? My boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I don't trust her one bit. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost a year. When I met him, he already had a very big group of best friends. One of them was this girl. There's actually another girl in the group, but my boyfriend and this particular girl, let's call her Lacey. Lacey is completely obsessed with my boyfriend. I tell him all the time, but he doesn't want to listen to me. She goes out of her way to spend time with him, and she'll do girlfriend things for him. Sometimes she'll call him and say, I cooked us dinner, come over to my apartment. She even goes to his apartment and helps him do laundry. Let me go back though. When we started dating, he asked me not to be uncomfortable and that him and her were only good friends. But as soon as I saw them with each other, it was visible that she was in love with him. When he first brought me around to meet his friends, she was super territorial. She would sit next to him and even sat on his lap in front of me. And this made my boyfriend uncomfortable. He asked her to sit on a chair instead of his lap. After that, I asked him if he had feelings for her and he said no. He said he's only ever seen her as a sister, that the thought of hooking up with her makes him want to vomit. Lacey reached out to me and asked me to have lunch with her. Throughout the whole lunch, all she talked about was my boyfriend, and how amazing he is, and how only a good girl deserves him. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I don't trust her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, I was sending me on Instagram. When her and I went to lunch, all she talked about was my boyfriend. That's when she started saying things like, he only deserves a really good girl. That's when I was straight up with her. I told her that he had already chosen me because he loved me, and that I didn't need her to tell me what my boyfriend needed. You guys should have seen the look on this girl's face. She was shocked that I would defend myself and even talk back to her. Then she said, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I told her that I didn't feel bad and that I knew what she was doing. She was basically trying trying to intimidate me and make me feel that I wasn't good enough for my boyfriend. She denied it and started apologizing, but at least I made it clear to her that I was not stupid and that she was not gonna walk all over me like she probably did with all of his exes. By the way, one of his past girlfriends actually broke up with her because of this girl. I mean, Lacey. Found this out through one of the other friends. They told me that I needed to be careful with her. That's why I was prepared to go to lunch with her. Guess what happened though? I called my boyfriend to say hi to him, and that's when he starts yelling at me. He said Lacey called him to tell him that I had attacked her at lunch, that I basically threatened her. I explained to him what happened from my point of view, and he said that she was probably just overreacting. But it was her word against mine. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend is moving in with his girl best friend and I do not trust her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. After Lacey told my boyfriend that I had attacked her and threatened her, he told me to keep my distance. So I did. But that meant that he would hang out with her without me. I found this completely unacceptable. That's when I told my boyfriend that she was manipulative, that she had clearly planned everything out so that he and her could be alone. Then I told him that his ex-girlfriend left him because of her. He told me that I didn't know the full story and that I should mind my own business. That's when I noticed that he wouldn't come over to my apartment every day. And guess why? His best friend Lacey told him that she had a stalker and that she needed my boyfriend to stay over her house so that she could feel protected and safe. I just can't. I told him that she was clearly manipulating him and probably lying about the stalker situation so that he could spend more time with her. And just like that, 2 days later, he told me that they were moving in together and that she miraculously found an apartment big enough for the two of them. In 2 days? I don't think so. I think she had been planning this the whole time. And my boyfriend is just stupid enough to fall for it. I told him if he moved in with her that he should just forget about me. He begged me not to leave him, so I guess I'm still his girlfriend. He's still debating whether or not to move in with her. He says he doesn't want to lose me, but he wants to be able to be there for her. I think I should break up with him, but maybe there's another solution. What do you guys think I should do? I'm going out for lunch, so I'm going to do a quick get ready with me. This is the Pacifica Vegan Collagen Everyday SPF. I love it. A little bit of Kosas concealer. I think this could be like a 5-minute or 3-minute makeup challenge because I can do this so quick and look put together really quickly. For brows, I'm doing this one from Pacifica. It's just a brow gel that has a little bit of fibers in it. So it makes the brows look... Oh shoot, I need to glue my nail on. It just fell off at the gym. I'm actually going to the gym after this too. For blush, I'm using Sweet Rose from Revolution Beauty. This is my current obsession. I love a good cream blush, and this one is extremely pigmented, so I don't have to top it off with regular powder blush. Hourglass mascara. This one, I have been sleeping on it. It's been in my drawer for like 6 months, and I just started using it, and it's, look at that, damn. Lip liner is Foxy by Cosmetics. I just lightly line, and then I fill in with this lipstick from ColourPop. It's Golden Beach. It's from the Bari collection. Pretty! Then I top it off with the lippy stick, and it's called something something from ColourPop. It is Aftershock. A little Joa lip oil. Gorgeous. Now I'm just gluing my nail back on. Press it. 10 seconds. My hair is still wet from the shower, so I have no time to do anything to it, so I just clipped it up. What do you guys think? Super quick. That was like 5 minutes. My husband refused to touch me on our wedding night and says that it's my fault. Our wedding was only 2 weeks ago, and to this day, he still has not touched me. Here's the thing, we had an arranged marriage. My family is extremely traditional, and where we come from, it's normal to have arranged marriages. When I was 12 years old, my parents told me who I was going to end up marrying. This all seemed very normal to me growing up because I saw my sisters and cousins doing it. But now that I'm in this, I realize how terrible it is. My now husband didn't actually grow up in the same country I did. In fact, we had only met a week before the actual wedding. I had a really bad feeling a month before the wedding though. So I told my parents I did not want to marry him. That's when they told me that if I didn't go through with the marriage, they would disown me. I would have nowhere to live, no money, and no family. So, of course, I agreed to marry him. A week before the wedding, my parents hosted a dinner for his family and mine. When he came in through the door, I was happy to see that he was actually attractive, but he didn't look at me once throughout the whole night. Part 2 is up. My new husband refused to touch me on our wedding night and says it's all my fault. We finally met a week before the wedding. When he came in through the door, I was so happy to see that he was actually attractive. But this man barely looked at me the entire night. Parents presented us to each other and he glanced at me. That was it. He was extremely cold and basically didn't speak to any member of my family. The only person he did speak to was my father, of course. I spent the entire dinner trying to make eye contact with him, but not once did it happen. Thankfully, the dinner only lasted about 2 hours and his parents and him left. As soon as they did, I burst into tears.
Also, I know I'm a beautiful girl. I've had many suitors come to my house and ask my parents for my hand in marriage. They had agreed to this arranged marriage so long ago that it never even gave any other guys a chance. The worst part is that one of the guys that asked to marry me a few years ago, he and I went to the same school, got along, and dare I say liked each other. At least he would look me in the face. I told my parents that he didn't even look at me once. My dad said that I was completely overreacting, but my mother agreed with me, thank God. She told my dad that my fiance's behavior was completely unacceptable, and that the least he could have done was at least said hello to me. My mom was also upset that he didn't even say hello to her, and that he was openly disrespecting our family. I tried to convince my dad to cancel the marriage, but he said no. Part 3 is up. My husband refused to touch me on our wedding night and blamed it all on me. He refused to look at me on our wedding day. He didn't even kiss me once. The only time he touched me that night was when the photographer asked us to hold hands for a picture. And even then, the way he grabbed my hand was so cold. When it came time for us to go to our room, I was already very upset. He could tell. We got into the room and I went straight to the shower. I took off my dress, showered, and came out. And when I did, he pretended to be asleep. That's when I grabbed him and turned him around. I asked him why he wouldn't touch me or even look at me. That if he didn't want to marry me, he shouldn't have. That's when he told me that he never really wanted to marry me because he had heard things about me. He said that we had some mutual friends, but he refuses to tell me who these friends are. He claims they told him that I had a secret boyfriend and that I had dated many men, which couldn't be further from the truth. First off, my parents are super strict. The only time I was unchaperoned was in school. And he said, "It's your fault, I will never touch you." I started to cry and I called my parents. I literally ran away from him. I told my parents what he said and thankfully they were on my side. My father says the marriage is void if he refuses to have children with me. But guess what? I started doing some digging and I found out that he was the one seeing other women and men. What should I do?
Creamy spaghetti squash. My coworker and I have been hooking up and we're both married. I asked him to end things, but he doesn't want to. Disclaimers, not my story time, it's on Instagram. I work in retail and my hours are really long. I usually work 10 to 12 hour days. And things got really complicated a few months ago. Let's call him Jake. Jake and I have been working together for almost a year. As soon as I met him, I was super attracted to him. And I could tell that he was attracted to me because there was always tension between us. He would always make jokes about me being his work wife, and it's kind of true. We mostly hung out together at work, and sometimes we would even go to fancy restaurants for our lunch breaks. It was all really fun until I realized that I started getting feelings for him. So I decided to tell him the truth. Once again, we went to a really nice restaurant to have lunch. And as soon as we sat down, I told him I had feelings for him, and that the best thing for me to do would be to transfer to a different store. Then he begged me not to switch stores, and he confessed that he also had feelings for me too. I told him that it was obvious he had feelings for me, but it was wrong for us to even talk about it. Then he grabbed my hand and asked me if we could just hook up once. I said yes, and he immediately booked a hotel. We spent our lunch hour at that hotel, and it was amazing. Part 2 is up. I've been hooking up with my coworker and we're both married. I asked him to end things and he said no. Disclaimers, not my story time, it's on Instagram. After we hooked up at the hotel, we were addicted to each other. We started showing up a half hour early to work to just make out in his car. And for lunch, without fail, we would always go to the same hotel which was near our store. It was so fun and exciting. But here's the thing. He has his wife and I have my husband. A little about me and my husband. We've been married for over 10 years and the relationship has become really stale. My husband never really touches me or even flirts with me at all. He's always focused on work. He started traveling for work last year and it actually made the relationship better. Having him at home was so annoying. He never made the effort to talk to me, and when I would ask him what was up, he would just get really angry. One time I tried to kiss him and he actually pushed me away. So you can see that I was pretty neglected. Jake told me that his wife and him basically have the same relationship as my husband and I. He even told me that he's not attracted to her and that they never even had chemistry before. Their parents pressured them into getting married and he had to go with it. But I'm gonna choose to trust that he's telling the truth. Remember I said my husband was traveling for work? Eventually I started inviting Jake over to my house whenever we had days off. He was in charge of scheduling, so he would manage to give us some free time together. And no one at the store ever suspected anything of him and I. Before I knew it, I was completely in love with my coworker. Sometimes he'd come over and we'd just watch movies and eat lots of food. We were in a relationship. Part 3 is up. My My coworker and I have been hooking up and we're both married. I asked him to end things, but he said no. Disclaimers is not my story time. I sent him on Instagram. After months of him coming to my house and us going to hotels, I was fully in love with this man. One day my husband comes back from a work trip and starts apologizing. He tells me he knows he's been neglectful and that he promises to change. I asked him if he was interested in someone else and he said no. He told me he's been depressed, but he didn't want to tell me. And now he's on medication and he's feeling a lot better. And he asked me to give him a second chance. Every single part of me wanted to blurt out that I was in love with somebody else, but I just didn't have the heart to do it. So I said yes to giving him another chance. The next day I saw Jake and I told him that I couldn't keep going. Then he flat out said no. He said that he had already asked his wife for a divorce and that he wanted to marry me. And then he told me that he loved me, which was the first time he'd ever said it. And I told him that I loved him too. Then he gave me a beautiful promise ring. He told me I need to leave my husband so that we could be together. I really want to, but I can't see myself leaving my husband, especially knowing that he was depressed. So here's what I did. I told my husband that I had waited for him too long and that I just simply wasn't in love with him anymore. He agreed to give me the divorce, but he still wants to live together. How can I tell my husband that I'm in love with somebody else? Help me, what should I do? I am a true blush addict and I want to put all 3 of these shades on one cheek, so let's see how it is. I'm using the new cheek stains from Tarte. This smells like I want to eat it. I'm going to use this in the lower part of my cheek, so right here. I'm putting exposed right over that. Everyone and their mother is using these, so I want to try them out too. And lastly, the shade Tipsy. I'm going to put this all over the apple of my cheek. Okay. I'm just going to use my fingers to tap it in. Oh my god, that looks so good. Do not tell me that looks bad. That looks so good.
Am I the asshole for hooking up with my best friend's ex and now we're in love? Disclaimers is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My bestie and I have known each other for over 10 years. Our lives have always been intertwined because we have the exact same careers and actually work at the same job. So her and I spend a lot of time together. My bestie and her ex broke up in 2020. The reason they broke up was because my best friend met another guy. When she broke up with her boyfriend, she didn't tell him that she met someone else. She told him that she fell out of love with him. He was so heartbroken that he actually decided to move away. After he started following me on Instagram and he would reply to my stories every now and then. But I would never engage because hello, she's my best friend's ex. But sometimes he would comment really nice things. So I started replying back. Now here's a little info on me. I'm a very, very shy girl. I've never had a serious relationship and I'm 23 years old. The only time I've ever dated is if guys come up to me and ask me out. Otherwise, I would never go on dates. T and I kept messaging. I started realizing we had a lot in common. A few weeks after that, he told me he was going to come into town to visit. And he asked me if I wanted to meet up with him for dinner. Obviously said no at first, but then I realized why not? I mean, nothing would happen, right? Wrong. First off, he offered to pick me up from my apartment. He opened the door for me to get in the car, and we went to a really fancy restaurant where he paid for everything. He made me laugh the entire night. I'm really attracted to guys that can make me laugh. Suddenly, underneath the table, I feel him grab my thigh. Part 2 is, am I the asshole for hooking up with my best friend's ex and falling in love with him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. That's when I felt him put his hand on my thigh underneath the table. I was actually really shocked. And we turned to look at each other and we both burst out laughing. It wasn't awkward or uncomfortable at all. It's like we had already known each other for so long, because we actually did. Mind you, we're at a restaurant and he sits closer to me and asked me if he could kiss me. I mean, how romantic. I said yes. And for about 5 minutes, we were full on making out in the middle of the restaurant. It was like fireworks were going off. I had never in my life felt this way about any man. Like I said in part 1, I'm super shy. I'm so shy. No, I really am. But I guess because I knew him from dating my best friend, I felt very comfortable. After that, he took me home and nothing happened. He was only planning to stay in town for a week, but he decided to extend his stay so that he could take me out on a few more dates. We went rock climbing, had a beautiful picnic. He even taught me how to surf. For a full week, we hung out every single day. My best friend started suspecting something. Started asking me who I was hanging out with so much, and I told her I didn't want to tell her yet. She knows that I'm seeing somebody. After our 7th date, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said no. Told him it was just wrong for us to do this since he was my best friend's ex. And he told me that neither of us owed her any loyalty, and that he found out that she actually cheated on him and left him for another guy. I just couldn't say yes. She's my best friend. Part 3 is up. Am I the asshole for hooking up with my best friend's ex and falling in love with him? Disclaimers are not my story time. Send me on Instagram. Just couldn't go through with it even though she cheated on him. That's when he told me that he would date me to marry and not just to hook up. And then the words came out of his mouth. He said, I love you. Then I just blurted it out too. I mean, I was in love with him. We'd only been hanging out for 2 weeks, but it was so magical. Then we did it right then and there at the beach. And I had sand everywhere, if you know what I mean. After that, we went back to my apartment and he had another confession. He told me that when he was dating my best friend, he always thought I was very pretty, and that he always regretted having met her first instead of me, and how I was the complete opposite to my best friend. Then he told me about all the times that she would flirt with other guys in front of him, and that she would openly DM athletes and celebrities celebrities in hopes that they would text her back, and that she would turn around and be super jealous and controlling of him. And I have to admit, I know that my best friend is like this. It's been 6 months now, but we still have a long distance relationship. Actually brought up me moving to LA to be with him. It would mean I would have to leave my dream job. Told me that he would help support me until I got my own job. I'm supposed to go visit him in a week, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna propose. I haven't told my best friend that I've been dating her ex now for 6 months. That we're totally in love, that the relationship is amazing, that he wants me to move in with him, and that he really wants to marry me. Knowing her, she'll probably throw hands. And I don't really want to lose her friendship. This whole time I managed to convince her that I was single and that I was just dating guys. She recently broke up with her dude and asked me if she should text her ex, aka my boyfriend. I said no. What should I do? This account posted this picture of Kourtney Kardashian completely unedited. Some people are absolutely tearing her apart in the comments. I'm going to show you guys. This is why the Kardashians edit their pictures so much, because they get torn in the comments. This is a 42-year-old woman trying to get pregnant. She just got married, and I bet she's really happy. I doubt she's worried about her back acne or wrinkles. Which, isn't that so refreshing from a Kardashian? And the comments about the dress. Maybe it doesn't fit her perfectly, but the fact that she's trying something new is amazing. This comment right here. Blemishes everywhere and an ill-fitting dress do no favors for anyone. And all the pregnancy comments, just because you don't have a flat stomach doesn't mean you're freaking pregnant. She looks so old. What is happening with her? She has aged drastically. It's that you're not used to seeing her perfectly manicured pictures. All of her Instagram pictures are poreless and absolutely perfect, but this is not it. This is what real women look like, and it goes to show how much social media has warped our minds and made us think that 40, 30, 20-year-old girls are supposed to look like these impeccable, perfect porcelain dolls. This comment right here, she's a little chunky. No, she's not. Aside from the fact that she's a Kardashian, if you saw this woman, a random woman like this dressed up in real life, you would call her beautiful. But because she's a Kardashian, we expect that she has to look perfect. So we take to the comments to start criticizing her back acne, her wrinkles, her hair, her dress. So what if she started changing her style a bit since they started dating? People are allowed to change and try new things, and this is what I think is amazing about her. This is more of what we need, real pictures, unedited stuff. Because even without the editing, she is still beautiful. Can you imagine if we had pictures of Kim and the rest of the girls like this? She looks happy, which most likely means that she's in a happy relationship, and he makes her feel that she is beautiful just the way that she is, without the editing, without having a flat stomach, without all of these other things that are added onto the Kardashians as a filter for our eyes. Now I just hope that she would actually post these pictures without editing, because they look so gorgeous and so happy together. Let a girl live. Story time about how my boyfriend pretended to be in love with me to get close to my mom. My boyfriend and I had been dating for 2 months. It started with anonymous emails. He started sending me love letters, I guess. Me being a love-deprived teenager, I fell into it. Started writing back to him asking who he was, and he told me he was my secret admirer. To be honest with you guys, this was totally thrilling to me. It was the first time ever I was getting attention from a guy. Whenever I had a crush on a guy, they would never ever talk to me. Like, they wouldn't even know I existed. Mostly because I'm super shy and I never talk to guys. But I'm also just not very confident, and I have very low self-esteem. Clearly, he took advantage of that. After a month of us writing to each other, I finally asked him if he wanted to meet with me. Keep in mind, he did not ask to meet me. I'm the idiot that asked him to meet me. I asked him to meet me out in a mall because obviously I thought it was safer to meet in a public place. When we first met, he was totally charming and really cute. He gave me my first kiss, and I was totally in love with him. Like, literally, right then and there, I was in love. And he even asked me to be his girlfriend that very same day. And of course, I said yes. But here's the thing. He asked me to keep the relationship a secret from my parents. I asked him why, and he said that they probably wouldn't like that he was a little bit older than me. I was 17 and he was 22. So I had a secret relationship now. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my boyfriend used me to get close to my mom. After he told me not to tell my parents about our relationship, I got really upset. I told him I didn't feel comfortable with that. But of course, he managed to convince me. So I had a boyfriend at 17 and he was 22. And it was a secret. A few weeks after our relationship, he started sneaking into my house. He would come up to my bedroom and we would only kiss. But here's where it gets scary. One time my parents were out and he wanted to go into my parents' bedroom. And when we did, he went straight to my mom's underwear drawer. He even started looking through her closet. And he opened up all of her drawers and looked through everything. I kept telling him we needed to get out of my parents' room in case if they came home, but he wouldn't. And he went into my parents' bathroom and started looking through everything. When he thought I wasn't looking, he sprayed some of my mom's perfume on him. At the time, I thought he was just playing around. A few days later, my mom started asking me if I had seen some of her underwear. I told her I didn't, but I knew what had happened. My boyfriend stole 2 pairs of my mom's underwear. I was so scared and disgusted. I asked him to come over to my house again, and he did. He snuck up through my window, and as soon as he did, I asked him about my mom's underwear. That's when he got really angry at me and started telling me that I was crazy. He even called me a pervert. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my boyfriend used me to get close to my mom. After my mom told me that her underwear had disappeared, I confronted my boyfriend. I knew that he had stolen them. But when I confronted him, he denied it and called me a pervert. Finally, a few days later, my parents came to me and told me that my mom had a stalker and that he must have been the one that stole my mom's underwear. That's when I confessed everything to them. I told him I'd had a secret boyfriend who was a little bit older than me and that he came into our house and that I let him go into my parents' bedroom and search my mom's closet and bathroom. My mom started to cry and my dad was really angry. They called the cops right away. Come to find out that my boyfriend had been stalking my mom for 6 months. He apparently met her at the gym and he couldn't get over her, and that he started talking to me because he wanted to get close to her. My mom finally got a restraining order, and he told the police that I was an easy target, and that he only started talking to me because he wanted to get into our house. But get this, he had snuck into our house several times before, when I was home by myself. He even took a nap in my parents' bed. He had stolen over 40 things from my mom, and he had a shrine of her in his house. I'm totally traumatized and will never trust a man again. What should I do?
My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my husband? My husband is a very, very jealous man. He can't stand it when I get hit on or even stared at. The few times that I've gotten hit on in front of him, he actually started a fight with the guy. So I basically live in fear of anybody hitting on me in front of him. He's also very jealous with our friends. I have a really big group of friends and a lot of them are males. He's outright told our male friends to not touch me or ever even hug me or kiss me when they see me. By the way, a lot of these guys are already married and in relationships. So the fact that my husband does that is just ridiculous. It's obviously humiliating to me. The only person my husband is not jealous of is his own brother. And at first I thought this was a good thing. His brother offered to move in with us while we were renovating our house. My husband and him basically work all day on the house. I get to work from home, so I'm usually in my own office. A few weeks ago, my brother-in-law started coming into my office. First, he would just talk to me, and then it turned into flirting. Then he started insinuating how good looking I was, how lucky my husband is. Part 2 is up. My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my jealous husband? That's when he started coming into my office to flirt with me. He would compliment everything about me. He would tell me that I had a great body, that I had a beautiful face. I know that he could visibly see how uncomfortable it made me, but he kept going. Of course, it never occurred to me to tell my husband because of how violent he gets when he's jealous. And he knew that, which is why he kept pushing it. One day, my husband and him went to a local bar after finishing up work at home. When they came home, my husband was completely wasted. My brother-in-law put my husband in our bed and told me that I should get him some water. I went down to the kitchen to grab my husband a bottle of water, but my brother-in-law followed me into the kitchen, cornered me up against the fridge and tried to kiss me. By the way, I could smell the alcohol on him, so I knew he was drunk. I pushed him away and told him not to touch me. That's when he started apologizing. He said, "I thought you wanted it." As I started walking away, he grabbed my arm and kissed me. But the truth is, part of me liked it. Truthfully, I always found my brother-in-law very attractive. By the way, it's not like I just let him kiss me. I was trying to fight him off. When he let me go, I slapped him and I ran upstairs. Of course, I avoided him after that. A few days later, I was having dinner with my friends when my brother-in-law shows up at the restaurant and sits at a table right across from us. Proceeded to just stare at me the whole time. Finally got up to the bathroom and he followed me. That's when he grabbed me and kissed me again. Part 3 is up. My brother-in-law keeps trying to hook up with me. Should I tell my jealous husband? When I saw him at the restaurant, I got up to go to the bathroom. He followed me, grabbed me, and kissed me again. Part of me really liked it. The other part of me knew this was totally wrong. Told him to leave the restaurant and he did. When I got back home from the restaurant, my husband wasn't home. That's when my brother-in-law confesses that he thinks my husband is having an affair. And that's why he thinks that he and I should just do whatever we want because my husband is already cheating on me. Now here's the thing. I have caught my husband cheating on me twice in the past. He told me that he'd never do it again and I believed him. So we began kissing. But I came to my senses when I realized what this could mean. Now I just want to say, what I feel for my brother-in-law is passion, but what I feel for my husband is love and passion. My husband has always fulfilled me in every single possible way, and I'm not about to leave my husband or ruin what we have for his brother. But this has now been happening for months. Brother-in-law continues to get me alone and kiss me. To be honest, it's kind of fun. Part of me has come to accept that my husband might be cheating on me. I haven't found concrete proof, but I feel like I will soon. But part of me doesn't care. I'm super attracted to my husband, but I'm also attracted to his brother. But I love my husband. I don't know what to do. Help me.
This is liquid bleeding for your lips, like you do your eyebrows, microblading. This is the same thing, but for lips because it stays on all day. It's a peel-off lipstick. Let's try it. This is from Wonderskin. It comes with a lip mask, a spray that activates the lip mask so you can peel it, and if you don't want to peel it, you can use this little towelette to wipe it off. I'm applying the lip mask. Okay, but this is a look. Now you leave it on for 10 to 45 seconds. I'm gonna leave it on for 45 seconds though. Now I use a little spray that comes with it to activate it. Okay. Oh my God. Oh. Oh my God. It's not coming. It worked. Holy crap. No makeup days. You want to wake up like this? You can. Topped it off with some gloss.
I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? I met my dad's best friend when I was 15 years old. Growing up, he would come to my house every now and then. A few years ago, my dad became a really big fan of the gym. Him and his best friend started going and they actually got really, really fit. Around this time, I turned 21 years old and I would start going out with my friends a lot. My dad would always make an effort to pick me up after I would go party with my friends. So anytime I went to a club or a bar, my dad would pretty much go pick me up without fail. But sometimes he couldn't and he would send his best friend instead. A little backstory on my dad's best friend. After he and
my dad got in shape, he turned into a fitness model. Models for clothing brands and a lot of sports gear. He actually never got married himself. Instead, he dates a lot of women. And before you all go crazy, most of them are his age. I'm sure you're all wondering he's 39 years old. So like I said, my dad would sometimes send him to pick me up from clubs and stuff. The first time he went to pick me up, I actually didn't even recognize him. He had just finished going on a date and he looked amazing. When I got in his Tesla with him, I just couldn't stop staring at him. He asked me what was wrong and I said, "Wow, you look so handsome." Then he laughed and said, "Oh, I clean up well." After that, he picked me up a few more times. On the 5th night that he picked me up, I was totally wasted. When I got in his car, I was telling him that I really wanted to hook up with somebody. I grabbed his thigh and he told me that I needed to find somebody my own age. Part 2 is up. I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? When I grabbed his thigh, he told me that I needed to look for somebody my own age. I started to laugh and asked why. That's when he said that he would never want to do anything to jeopardize his relationship with my dad and that I was way too young for him. I told him my dad had nothing to do with it and that we were both consenting adults. Then all he said was, "Nice try." Of course, I felt rejected, but I knew that he was attracted to me too. So I knew that all I had to do was wait. A few weeks later, my dad had a get together with some of his friends. And of course, his best friend was there too. And this time he looked so good. So I decided to make another move. While my dad was in the backyard with all his friends, I asked his best friend to come with me to the kitchen. As soon as we stepped into the kitchen, he grabbed my hand and told me that I needed to calm down. I told him there was nothing wrong with us liking each other. And then he kissed me. And oh my god, he's such a good kisser. But the kiss only lasted like 3 seconds. He went back outside and didn't talk to me for the rest of the night. I was hooked at that point. A few weeks later, I went out with some friends and told my dad that I needed him to pick me up. But of course, I knew my dad was on a business trip. So guess who he sends? His best friend. But when he came to pick me up, I decided to act like nothing had happened. When I got in the car, we didn't say a word to each other. He just started driving me home. Once we were a block away from my house, he parked his car. Suddenly, he starts kissing me and it was so amazing. And we ended up hooking up in his car that night. Part 3 is up. I hooked up with my dad's best friend and now I'm pregnant. Should I tell my dad? After the night we hooked up in his car, we didn't speak for about 2 weeks. But of course I played it cool. I just pretended like I didn't care. My mom and dad's anniversary was a few days at this point, so my siblings and I decided to have a party for them. And of course we invited my dad's best friend, Pore. I knew I had to look absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I wore a beautiful lavender silk dress, which fit like a glove. The festivities were amazing and my parents had a great time. And the entire night my dad's best friend just kept staring at me. But like I said, I was playing hard to get. We had a live band and catering for the whole event, so everyone was out on the dance floor. Seeing as everyone was distracted, I decided to go to the kitchen because I knew that he would follow me. And he did. Once he came into the kitchen, he started kissing me. Then we went inside the pantry and hooked up again. Before we went back to the party, he told me he had really serious feelings for me. And I told him I did too. That's when he told me that we should be honest with my parents and tell them the truth, because he really wanted a relationship with me. A few days later, we told my parents while at dinner. My dad absolutely lost it. I managed to calm him down and we all talked. Been a few weeks now and he's come to accept it a little more. But now I've missed my period. The test came out positive and I haven't told anybody. I'm so scared. What should I do?
Get ready with me for a callback here in New York. I'm in New York for like 24 hours for this callback. It's for a TV show. This is an audition, so I'm doing a very simple makeup look, and I actually have to match the look I did for the first audition since this is the callback, which is like the second audition. This is the Refi Brow Sculpt Gel. And brows are almost done. I'm using some SPF as my moisturizer. I can't say what TV show this is for, but if I get this, you guys, it'll be amazing and life-changing. I have to stop saying if, when I get this, because I am confident I will get it. I'm just using some Photo Focus foundation from Wet n Wild. I really believe in manifesting, and if you believe what you want is true and can happen and is real, that's when things start happening. And I can definitely believe I can get this. Tiny bit of Kosas concealer, lashes to play up my eyes, you know, make them look flirty. How does it look? So I have a pimple on my brow. This is the Glossier Brow Flake, just to draw in tiny little hairs and make it look very natural. Amazing Cosmetics powder, just to set a little bit and take any shine away. Makeup by Marital lip liner in Chris. This shade is so perfect for me. Vegas lipstick by Kosas. This is my favorite lipstick, nude lipstick of all time. I'm adding just a little bit of bronzer contour to my forehead and cheeks, just because I feel like my forehead looks ginormous right now. Blush, I have this one from Persona Cosmetics. It helps to disguise and kind of blur out the pores, and I love the shade so much. I think it's so pretty. This is the fit. It's a little scandalous, but it goes with the character and who she is and what she does for a living. This is the purse I'm taking. These are the shoes. I forgot to paint my toenails, so I'm going to do that right now. And I'm also going to put on some earrings and this little hair clip to do a half up, half down. And I'm ready to go. Wish me luck. Bye.
Story time about how my husband makes me pay for everything and still controls all of my money while he's totally unemployed and broke. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, send me on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 years. 2 of those years we were separated and we recently got back together last year. He lost his job during COVID, so when we got back together, he didn't have a lot of money. Obviously, I didn't really mind. I was just happy we were getting back together. And if you're wondering why we separated, it's because he got really jealous and controlling of everything I ever did. When we got back together, I told him that he needed to change that. And I really could see a change in him this time around. The only problem was that he refused to get a job. I have a really good salary. I make about $80,000 a month. Theoretically, I could totally support him. When I asked him why he didn't want to get a job, he told me that it just wasn't for him. And he also told me that he wanted some time off and he just wanted to travel. Well, this is when things start to get complicated. When we got back together, he was living with his parents, so he ended up moving into my very nice apartment. I live in a really beautiful high-rise. I have a doorman, a gym, indoor pool, and then he moved in with all of his junk. I had to start paying for everything. Anytime he wanted to go to dinner or order food or buy groceries, I was the one footing the bill. He even uses my Amazon account to order whatever he wants. While he was at home playing video games, I was in my office working my ass off. But things get worse. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my husband controls all my money while he's unemployed and totally broke. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After 3 months of me paying for everything and him using my Amazon account to buy whatever he wanted, including gaming consoles, this man had the audacity to tell me that I was spending too much money on my designer bags. Yeah, you heard that right. One day I decided to treat myself for my birthday by getting myself a Chanel bag. As soon as he saw the new purchase, he started acting like I was addicted to shopping. And then he starts bringing up all these other things. How I like going to Starbucks, how I like going to the nail salon, and that's when I realized it. He had access to my bank account. He could see all of the transactions that I was making. And of course he could. I was in my office all day while he had access to my laptop at home. And of course it didn't occur to me to change my passwords. I was actually really shocked when he started bringing all of this up. Then he suggested that I should let him manage my money. And at first I just went with it. Said okay, and that's when he literally took my credit card from me. Then he started moving money around my accounts and started buying crypto. After 2 months of that, I was done. I asked him to give me my credit card back, which he did. He started guilting me into feeling like I shouldn't go to the nail salon and do these little small things that make me feel good about myself. He was brainwashing me. A few weeks later, it was time for me to upgrade my car. So I decided to get a Tesla. And when I told him, he got so angry. I could see in his face that he was so envious. He spent 2 hours trying to talk me out of getting the stupid Tesla. But the very next day, I went straight to the Tesla store and bought my car. When I finally got the car, he started driving it all over town before I drove it. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my husband controls all my money while he's totally broke and unemployed. Disclaimer, is not my story time, send me on Instagram. After he started driving my brand new Tesla before I did, I started getting really snippy with him. I was always angry and in a bad mood. That's when he started getting even more controlling and this time jealous again. He started to suspect that I was cheating on him. He started showing up to my office to just check on me. By the way, I'm totally aware that if I leave him, he has no money. So of course he's going to be totally controlling of me. Unfortunately, this is when we started getting into really big fights. I reproached him for everything. Him controlling all of my money and literally telling me what I could or could not buy. And I finally mustered up the courage to ask him to get a job again. And I told him that if he didn't get a job to start paying for half of the bills and everything else, that I would simply file for divorce. He started to cry and he threw a tantrum, but eventually he said yes. Do you think that he moved a muscle to go get a job? No, he didn't. So I took it upon myself to see if my company was hiring. And they did. So now he's got a really good job because of me. I revoked all his access to my accounts and I have full control of all the crypto. Now I give him a weekly allowance. I cannot wait until he starts getting paid. My parents think I should get a divorce, but I'm not sure. What should I do? Caught my husband making out with another man on our honeymoon and I'm refusing to give him a divorce. My husband and I met on a blind date. Our friends had set us up and they made him sound like a Greek god. And he kind of is. He's super tall, attractive, Greek, tan. His dream is to become a politician and he owns several businesses. I own my own marketing agency and we're both addicted to work. We're literal workaholics. When we went on our first date, I was so surprised to see how much we had in common. Both super work driven. We also found a lot of the same things funny. This was such a relief to me because I'd never been on a blind date before. And we talked about a lot of stuff, including our sexy preferences. He told me he only liked women and I was like, okay, cool. And I told him, of course, I only liked men. He actually ended up going on a total of 15 dates before he asked me to be his girlfriend. Everything just felt so amazing and right. We had amazing chemistry, he made me laugh, and we had a lot of fun in the bedroom. After a few months, he asked me to be his wife and I was so happy I said yes. He hired the best wedding planner in our city and we got to planning. We were both really involved in everything. The wedding was spectacular. We got married in the winter, so it was snowing outside. It was beautiful. We had an orchestra, amazing catering, so I was really happy. The day after
After that, we went on our honeymoon. Planned to go to several Greek islands. Our first stop was Santorini. I actually got in really good shape for the honeymoon. I had abs. I wanted to look as sexy as I could for him. A few days into our stay, we found this really cute cafe, and the server at the cafe was actually really handsome. Him and my husband got along really well. So well that I caught them making out at our hotel. Part 2 is up. I caught my husband kissing another man on our honeymoon, and I'm refusing to give him a divorce. As I walked into the hotel, I could see 2 men kissing in a corner. Obviously, I didn't know it was my hubby, so I turned away. I went straight up to our bedroom and I couldn't find him. I called his cell phone, but there was no answer, so I went right back down to the lobby. And this is when I look again at the 2 guys kissing in the corner. I could only see one of the guys' backs, and obviously I didn't recognize it as my husband. Not until I see my husband's hand creeping up on the back of this guy's neck. And immediately I recognize his hand and the ring. I thought it was a joke at first, until I could see they were passionately making out. I yelled my husband's name and they both turned to look at me. That's when I saw it was the server from the damn cafe that my husband and I had been going to almost every single morning. The same guy my husband was talking to almost every single day. The server ran out of the hotel. He obviously was not looking to confront me. That's when my husband grabs my arm and takes me to the pool area. That's when he confessed that he thought he was bi and that he was just experimenting. And he also said that the server basically forced him to kiss him. I told him he should have been honest with me from the beginning about being attracted to guys, and that the least he could have done was not make out with this guy in the hotel of our lobby. He started to apologize, but I couldn't even talk to him. I still wanted to enjoy the trip, so I got my own hotel room. That very same night, my husband tells me that we should consider a divorce, and that he thinks he might have really serious feelings for the server. I said no. I would be so embarrassed if I go home right now and tell my entire family and friends that my husband left me for another man. Not to mention the fact that he totally wasted my time. I asked him if we could just work this out, and he's asking for an open relationship now. And of course, I'm totally in love with him. We just got married. I'm just so confused. What should I do? I just found out my husband showed his coworkers and his friends naughty pictures of me. Should I leave him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. My husband and I have only been married a few months. Before that, we dated for 2 years. My husband works in a really remote area, so he's not with me most of the time. After we got married, we bought a house near my parents' house since he would be away for most of the time, and that way I could spend time with my family. There are a few things about my husband that really bother me, but for the most part, he is pretty good. He supports me financially while I'm in school to pursue my career. I just got an internship for a magazine, which has been my dream job. My husband and I started dating. Everything went really fast. He's really passionate. After a year of dating, he proposed, and of course I said yes. We have a great love life. I mean, great. We have a lot of chemistry together and we're super attracted to each other. And one thing about my husband is he loves to show me off. He's like the opposite of a jealous husband. He loves when I wear cute revealing clothes, which is not a bad thing by the way. And whenever somebody hits on me, he loves it. He's proud to be my husband and I'm proud to be his wife. But sometimes I feel like he's showing me off a little bit too much. Since he's away for work, he always asks me to send him, naughty pictures. Come to find out, he shows his coworkers. Part 2 is up. My husband showed his friends and coworkers my naughty pictures. Should I leave him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. Here's how I found out he did it. Every single day, multiple times a day, he would ask me to send him naughty pictures. But it actually became like a routine for me. I would even order cute lingerie on a weekly basis for this. One day, my husband sent me a message that was clearly for one of his friends. In the message, he said, "Check out this picture my wife just sent me." And then he proceeded to attach the picture I had just sent him. For the first 5 seconds, I thought he was joking. You see, I would never have expected him to do that. But after about 30 seconds, I came to. Realized he had sent it to me by mistake. I called him and he instantly turned off his phone. I called him about 10 more times, but it all went to voicemail. Finally, 3 hours later, he sends me a text message apologizing. He said that he had never showed his friends the pictures and that he promises to never do it again. And that this time the picture was too good to not share. And it gets worse. He told me his coworkers are always drooling over my Instagram pictures, so he just felt like sharing. He sent a whole other message talking about how sexy and beautiful I am. And guess what? He asked for another freaking picture. Part 3 is up. My husband showed his friends and coworkers naughty pictures of me. Should I leave him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After he apologized, he basically asked me for more pictures. So I decided to ghost him for a week. After a week, he shows up to our house. When I opened the door, he started begging for forgiveness. He told me that he couldn't live without me, that he thought I was so beautiful he just wanted to share my pictures. I explained to him that what he did was a total violation of my trust and of my body. The thought of his coworkers and friends being able to see those pictures literally nauseated me. And of course, I was totally ashamed that my family and friends would find out. I mean, what if one of his friends told his wife and then she told me something? He told me he'd never do it again and I accepted his apology. After that, we did the dirty and it was amazing. He had to go to work the very next day. And a few days later, he started asking me for more pictures. I have to trust the fact that he said he would never show those pictures to anybody again. So I started sending him pictures again. Only now it just doesn't feel the same. Before it was fun and I wanted to send him the pictures. Now I do it praying that he won't show it to anybody else. I've also come to realize that my husband knows how to manipulate me really well. Our sexy times are so good that he just gets me to do whatever he wants. Like taking those pictures. I really don't know if I should trust him, but at the same time, he's my husband. I feel like you guys will have good advice. What should I do? Finally cheat on my husband and I don't care. Am I the asshole? The only way I'll stay married is if I cheat. Whenever I meet an attractive guy, I go out of my way to seduce them and my husband doesn't stop me. This has been happening for years. I love my husband, but I can't seem to keep my hands to myself. Sometimes I don't even come home and I have no shame. I've even cheated in front of my husband's friends and they hate me for it. They've told my husband that he needs to control me more. Honestly, I think my husband is kind of into it. In fact, he's taken an interest in talking to all of my lovers. One night, my husband caught me making out with one of my boy toys at a friend's party. A few hours later, he was found floating in the pool, and everyone thinks that my husband did it. He does look really guilty, but I don't want to believe it was my husband. After that, I reconnected with an old flame and started another affair, but he's also missing now. I keep calling him, but I get no answer. Come to find out, my husband actually spoke to him before he went missing. What should I do?
Guess what?
I'm actually telling you the story of a new movie.
Find out what happens next and stream Deepwater on Hulu and guess who is in it. If you're a fan of Jacob, you gotta run a Hulu now. Bye!
My best friend always projects her insecurities onto me. Should I break up with her? My best friend and I have known each other for exactly 2 years. We met in college and hit it off right away. We're both Latinas and we come from really big families. I have 2 other sisters and we get along really well. We always hype each other up and have each other's backs. A few months after I started my friendship with my best friend, let's call her Lucia. Lucia started showing some really toxic qualities. Sometimes I think I'm just reading too much into it or overreacting. So you let me know. First of all, she would start talking bad about my sisters in front of me. She would make comments like, wow, your sister's gained weight, or wow, your sister has cellulite. When she first did this, I would just defend my sisters, but then I realized that just made her want to keep talking more trash. So if she ever said anything about my sisters, I wouldn't say anything. At the time our friendship started, I had a really big crush on this guy. He and I went to the same gym and I never had the courage to speak to him, not until my sister convinced me to. I finally spoke to him at the gym and we actually hit it off. We would work out together every now and then and he finally asked me out on a date. The day of our date, my best friend came over to my house, and while I was getting ready, she started saying really weird things. At first, she told me that I should wash my hair because it looked oily. I told her my hair was freshly washed. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I could see her reflection and she just rolled her eyes at me. This is when things started clicking. Part 2 is up. My best friend projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? I could see through the mirror that she had rolled her eyes at me. Then she started making other comments about my appearance. Mind you, I'm getting ready for a date. When I showed her the outfit that I was gonna wear, she said it was too revealing and that I would probably scare him off. Wasn't even revealing, it just showed my legs. It was a cute sundress with a cardigan on top. I told her I thought I looked cute. And then she said, "Allá tu amiga." As I'm finishing up my hair and my makeup, she says, "Wow, you're gonna wear that much makeup?" But the way she said it was so aggressive, I actually took off the lipstick I was wearing. Instead, I just put on lip balm. I looked at her and she had a smile on her face. It was like she was happy she finally got to me. The date went really well and he actually turned into my boyfriend a few weeks later. And guess what? My best friend started judging everything about him. The first time she met him, she started saying, "Wow, I think he's balding," which he isn't. And even if he was, I wouldn't care. She also started making comments about him staring at other girls, something I never even noticed that he did, and I would know I'm with him all the time. It's like she was trying to plant all these insecurities in my head. One day, Lucia and my boyfriend and I are in his car. We were heading to the movie theaters when Lucia says, "Wow, you put on way too much perfume. It's giving me a headache." That's when my boyfriend told her that if it bothered her that much, she should just go home. And out of nowhere, Lucia swung her fist at him. She actually tried to attack him. Part 3 is up. My best friend always projects her insecurities on me. Should I break up with her? That's when she started swinging at my boyfriend. Luckily, I yelled at her and she stopped. It's like she was upset at me for yelling at her for trying to hit my boyfriend. That's when my boyfriend kicked her out of the car and I asked him to calm down. I got out of the car with Lucia and asked her to calm down. That's when she told me that I needed to break up with him and that he was clearly abusive. I told her he was just defending me. Then she said, "He doesn't need to defend you. I'm only saying this because I care about you." Then she called herself an Uber and left. My boyfriend and I went to the movie theaters and we had a really nice night. Here's some more examples of her projecting on me. While we were getting ready for a friend's birthday party, she started pointing out some stuff on my body. She said, "Your elbows are really dark. You need to fix that." Another time I decided to get some highlights and she said they looked horrible on me. She said I looked like a JLo wannabe. Luckily, I didn't care and I just kept the highlights. Mind you, 2 months later, she got the exact same highlights. Now, I know that she cares about me because she does have my back. She'll help me with anything I need, honestly. And I wonder if I'm overreacting, but I don't think so. I just don't know how to tell her that she's toxic. She makes me feel bad. What should I do? Is it wrong for my husband to demand sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimers is not my Storytime, Asserting on Instagram. My husband and I have been married for 6 months. Unfortunately, our marriage was arranged by our families. And so far, I have not been able to fall in love with him. I come from a very strict religion. My family and my husband's family believe that I should obey him. And it's been really hard for me to adjust to this. Before getting married, I had more freedom. But now I'm mostly home all day waiting for my husband to come home. I cook all of his meals and serve him while he's eating. And even if I'm not eating, he expects me to be sitting there with him. My husband is a very rich man, so he lets me go shopping whenever I want. But that's something I can't even do by myself. He always sends someone with me to go shopping. So I take advantage and buy really expensive designer things. Sometimes I spend $5,000 on a shopping day. This really never seems to bother him. Another thing I don't really like is that he rarely ever speaks to me. We have small talk every now and then, but we don't talk about important things, especially before we got married. We'd only seen each other a few times. I thought we'd have a really good relationship and be friends, but no. Sometimes I'll ask him what his day was like, and he just says it was fine. Other times I try to talk to him about his job, but he never really gives me a full answer. So honestly, I don't even know what he does. But my biggest problem with him is something else. He demands, you know what, sexy time. And I never really want to. I'm not in love with him and I'm not really attracted to him. On our wedding night, my family really pressured me into doing it. And it was horrible. And now whenever he wants it, I defend myself and it turns into a big fight. He even called my parents to complain. Part 2 is it wrong that my husband demands sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimer, this is not my story time and send me on Instagram. That's when he called my parents and complained to them that I wouldn't do it with him. He took me to my parents' house the following day. My dad was really angry with me and told me that I needed to obey my husband. I told him I never wanted to get married to begin with and that I didn't love him or was even attracted to him. My parents clearly didn't understand me. I went home and my husband basically coerced me into doing it. And it's not even like it's fun. He doesn't do anything to please me. It's all about him when we're doing it. One night he asked me to do it and I refused. He got so angry he told me that he didn't need to ask for my permission. I basically punched him in the face and since then he hasn't touched me. But then I felt so responsible and I actually apologized. Even though I was just defending myself. Everything's back to the way it was. I just have to do whatever he wants. All our friends think that we're incredibly happy. I couldn't take it anymore, so I opened up to one of my best friends. I told her everything that was going on and she told me that I should just leave my husband. But with my religion and my family, it would be really hard to do that. Then she told me that I should just take on a lover. And the idea kind of stuck in my head. Let me backtrack a little. When I was in college, I had met somebody, but nothing ever happened because I knew my parents wouldn't accept him. I reached out to him on Facebook and asked him how he was, and he happened to be arriving to my city soon. I asked him if he wanted to meet up and he said yes. And what happens next is crazy. When we saw each other, we instantly fell in love. Part 3 is up. Is it wrong for my husband to demand sexy time even though I don't want to? Disclaimers in my story time is sending me on Instagram. When I saw my old friend, it was like love at first sight. I could tell he was so happy to see me and we talked for hours. And the only reason I was able to go was because I told my husband that I was going to hang out with my best friend. So my best friend wasn't actually even with me. After that, my friend, let's call him Rob. Rob and I hung out a few more times, and eventually I opened up to him about what was happening with my husband. I explained to him I had an arranged marriage and that I wasn't in love with my husband. He also told me that I should divorce my husband, but then he told me why. He said that since college he's always had feelings for me. That means he's had feelings for me for 3 years. Well, long story short, he's my lover now, and nobody knows. Only my best friend. We see each other 3 times a week. I always go when my husband's at work, and I tell him that I'm gonna be with my best friend. And Rob and I meet at his place, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I know that this is totally wrong, but I'm finally living. Of course, my husband still demands you know what, but I'm able to bear it now because I know I have someone else who actually loves me. I know this can't last forever though. I wish I could just fall in love with my husband, but it's not that easy. He's always so demanding, and he doesn't understand that his behavior is not normal. And I barely speak to my parents now. I've only been seeing Rob for a month, but he's gotta go back home eventually. What should I do?
I think this might be the prettiest blush in the entire world. I'm just gonna go in with my finger because it's cream product. It's not powder, which is surprising. Wow. I love the color. It's Cheeky Rose. So this is from Winky Lux. I think it's so pretty. I love the packaging. This is so pretty. I really do like the blush though. What do you guys think?
My boyfriend's become really abusive since I told him I was pregnant. In fact, I think he actually tried to unalive me, but I'm not sure. He and I started dating 7 months ago. I actually suspect that he's a narcissist, but honestly, I can't be sure. That's why I'm telling my story on here to get some perspective. When we first started dating, he started love bombing me. I actually had to Google what that was because I wasn't sure, but after I did, I can definitely say that he did do that. Just after 1 week of going on dates, he told me that he loved me. Then basically, he just pressured me into becoming his girlfriend. He even went behind my back to speak to my parents and convince them to say yes to him. He obviously made a good impression on my parents and they convinced me to go out with him. 2 months into the relationship, everything was normal. He was really affectionate, loving. He made time for me. He would think of really creative dates. But anytime I didn't say thank you for the smallest thing. For example, if he opened the door for me and I didn't say thank you, he would get upset. Sometimes he'd make breakfast for me, and if I didn't say thank you in a very enthusiastic way, he would get really upset. After the 3rd month, he started accusing me of being ungrateful. And then after that, he started getting really jealous. He hadn't done this before, so I thought it was just a phase and that it would pass. But unfortunately, it did not. He started convincing himself that anytime I got a phone call, it was from some guy that I had met. Even going to the gym became a problem. He started asking me if there were any guys at the gym that I liked, or if anybody was approaching me, and God forbid if anybody looked at me on the street. He would somehow blame it on me. It got to the point where I wouldn't even want to go out with him. One day he decided to take me to this really fancy restaurant. Everything was going really well. He was acting like a normal boyfriend. But as soon as we sat down, I started getting this weird vibe from him. It's like he was absent. He wasn't there. He stopped talking and got really quiet. When I asked him what was wrong, he told me there was a table of 2 guys that kept staring at me, and that it was obvious that they knew me from somewhere, and that I obviously knew them too. Where did he get this stuff? I turned around to look at the guys, and they were middle-aged men who weren't even looking at me. Maybe one of them just happened to look at me when we came in. I ended up having to apologize. A few weeks ago, my period got really weird, so I decided to take a pregnancy test. At first, I told my parents and I told them that I didn't want to tell my boyfriend. My dad told me I was being silly and to just tell him, so I did. And when I did, his reaction was terrible. He told me that the baby probably wasn't his and that I was cheating on him for sure. Then he said that as soon as we could, we were going to get a paternity test. One night he made me dinner and I got really sick afterward. I started vomiting and I hadn't had any pregnancy symptoms, so I knew something was wrong. Instead of telling my boyfriend, I actually just went straight to my parents' house. They took me to the ER and there they told me that I probably ingested something that wasn't good. Now I'm thinking he might have put something in my food. What should I do?
I have a thing about my pores. I think they're huge. I am going to try out this Pore Blurring Blush. It's from Persona Cosmetics. I love the color. Let's try it. I'm just going to pick it up with a brush. I think it's really pigmented. Let's see. Oh my God, but why did that work? Oh my God, you guys, I have no filter on. Pores? Come on. That actually worked. Wow. Let me do this side. Look. Oh my God. Okay, I actually did not think that was gonna work at all. Okay. I'm in love. What do you guys think? This is my wall of bags. Let me show you. Starting off with my Lazy Oaf bag. This is furry baby. This is my Susan Alexandra bag. My sister got it for me for my birthday. It is everything I could ever dream of. This is me in a purse. I call this one Linda. I just love that it hangs on my ankle. What is this? I got it at Marshall's. Don't judge me. This is from Ragged Priest. I like when my purses actually don't match perfectly to my outfit. I think it's really cute. It's contrast, baby. This is from Urban Outfitters. This is deceivingly huge. I can fit so much in this. I love it. This one's from Shein. It's like a little teddy bear. It's cute. This one I got as a gift from Ceremonia. This is huge too. I mean, it looks kind of small, like compared to me, but it fits a lot and I love it. I've had this for about 8 years now. This is from Country Road. My mother-in-law gave it to me. It's an Australian brand and it's just too cute. It matches with every single outfit I've ever worn. I think you guys know I'm not a neutrals girl. This is from Ragged Priest. It is so beautiful. This made me so happy when I bought it. Honestly, you guys, I think I'm a color file. Like, I'm addicted to color. Obviously. This furry number is also from Lazy Oaf and I got the matching hat to go with it. Oh my God, it is so cute. Oh my God, this fit. This fit. In different colors. Oh my God, look at my hair. They had different colors, but they were no longer in stock. So I settled for the brown, which is not usually what I'd go for, but I just love the design of it so much and I love the handle. Cute. This is a very special purse. My sister got it for me when she was in Mexico and it's all from can thingy things, you know? But how cute is it? And the rest of these are just bucket hats and this beautiful, God, I'm forgetting words. Bye.
My husband signed up for my sister's OnlyFans. Should I divorce him? Disclaimer, not my Storytime, instead of me on Instagram. My husband and I have a really toxic relationship. When he and I first started dating, I was extremely jealous. I would instigate fights almost every single day. Now that we're married, I'm definitely less jealous. But he's always been jealous throughout our relationship. He tries to control everything I do, down to the way I dress and even the people I can or cannot hang out with. He even insisted that I quit my job, which I did. He's invested a lot in Tesla and crypto, so he makes a lot of money without having to leave the house. Which, yes,
is totally amazing, but that means he and I are together all the time. And with his jealousy, sometimes I just can't stand him. I've tried to help him with his jealousy because I used to be in that place. And when I try to talk to him about it, he just gets mad at me. Whenever he sees that I post something on Instagram, he gets angry. He says that I'm looking for attention, which of course I am, but not from guys. Everyone posts on social media because they want to show off their life. A little on my sister. We're identical twins, and we're really, really close. Unfortunately, my sister got laid off from her job last year. That's when she decided to start her OnlyFans. I support her in everything she wants to do. She's actually making really good money from it, so she's really happy about it. A few days ago, I got on my husband's phone to look for something. When I see my sister's pictures, part 2 is up. My husband signed up for my sister's OnlyFans. Should I divorce him? Disclaimers are not my story time, it's not me on Instagram. A few days ago, I got on my husband's phone to transfer some money from his account to mine. When I started looking for his banking app, I noticed something else on his screen. I had never seen this before, so I clicked on it. And as soon as I opened it, I see my sister's pictures. And I knew it was her OnlyFans right away. By the way, I had never told my husband that my sister had an OnlyFans. She wouldn't even post about it on her social media. So the fact that he found it makes me believe that he had my phone bugged or something. But here's the thing. He was using a different name for his account. So it was likely that my sister did not know it was him. From there, I could see that he was following a bunch of other girls. And when I went to their messages, he had paid over hundreds of dollars every single day to all of these girls. Can you imagine how much money that is? My husband came into the room and saw me on his phone. Of course, he didn't freak out because he never thought that I would find it. But I confronted him right away. But he didn't even flinch. He said he had every right to go on OnlyFans because it was the same thing as going to any website. I told him to at least unfollow my sister and he said that he wouldn't. He said he loved it because it was like watching me do naughty things. Then he said, "Isn't this better than cheating on you?" I was flabbergasted. Part 3 is up. My husband signed up for my sister's OnlyFans. Should I divorce him? Disclaimers is not my story time. It's not me on Instagram. That's when he told me that it was better than him cheating on me. And I was shocked. I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I threatened him. I told him that if he didn't stop following my sister, that I would start my own OnlyFans account. Like I said, he's really jealous. So he went berserk. He ripped my phone out of my hand and threw it against the wall. Then he told me that the only reason he asked me to quit my job was so that I wouldn't be around other men. By the way, I used to be a personal trainer, and most of the time I would only train women. I told him that my sister and I wouldn't be comfortable with him looking at our OnlyFans. It was so disturbing. Oh, and I also told him that he needed to stop controlling me, and that I could buy my own phone with my own money and start my own account. Then he came to his senses and started to apologize. And I also told him that I was suspecting that he bugged my phone, and that he was receiving my messages, because there was no other way he could have found out about my sister's account. Then he calmed down and explained things to me. He said that he had bugged my phone a few months ago because I was posting too much on Instagram and it was bothering him. So basically, he has access to my DMs and all my text messages. Promised to stop doing that and that he would buy me a new phone. And that's how he found out about my sister's OnlyFans. He said he only signed up out of curiosity, and that he only wanted to see a few pictures and then delete it. But the more he kept looking at her pictures, the more he would think of me, and that it turned him on. And in front of me, he deactivated his account and deleted everything. He promised me that he would never do that again. Of course, I haven't forgiven him though. Haven't even spoken to him in days. But every time he sees me, he tries to kiss me and hug me. And when I push him away, he tries even harder. Honestly, I think he likes it. I do believe that he's secretly addicted to drama and that he thrives on it. I'm planning on never telling my sister about it. I don't think she'd feel comfortable around him ever again. I mean, I don't feel comfortable around him right now. I'm so confused and I don't know if I should leave him or not. He's so controlling all the time. What should I do? My boyfriend went on a vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimer, I look extremely tired because I'd been filming for 7 hours. I'm not sad, don't worry. Storytime was sending me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months only. Here's the thing, we never bring up our exes, like ever. From my perspective, I thought we had a really healthy relationship. We're both really into fitness, would work out together every single day, and we made time to cook together every single day. He asked me to move in with him 2 months after we started dating, but I said no. I explained to him that I just wasn't ready for that, and he got really upset. That's when things started changing. He began making up excuses about not being able to hang out with me, and sometimes he wouldn't even show up to our gym dates. And I guess one of the mistakes that I made was giving him his space. A few days later, he calls me and tells me that he's in Boston for a work trip. He didn't even tell me he was going on a trip. I just said okay. Then I tracked his location on my phone and it turns out he's in the Bahamas. He forgot that I could track his location. I started investigating and you'll never guess what I found. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend went on vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimers is not my story time, it's on Instagram. Also, I'm just really tired from filming. I'm not sad, I promise. After checking his location and seeing that he was actually in the Bahamas and not Boston where he told me he was going, started doing some investigating on Instagram. I scanned his Instagram for people that he tagged. I finally came across his ex's profile. No, I had never done this before just because I didn't care about his ex. Like I said in part 1, we never talked about our exes. Fortunately, her account was set to private, so I couldn't see her pictures or stories. But I did see on her bio that she was currently in the Bahamas. From his location, location, I could see what hotel he was staying at. So I called the hotel and asked for his room number. And they put me through. My boyfriend answered the phone. And the first words out of his mouth were, "How did you find me here?" I told him I could see his location and that he must have forgotten. That's when he came up with his lie. His boss asked him to go to the Bahamas for emergency business, and that he didn't have time to call me and tell me about it. In the background, I could hear that somebody opened the door and I heard a woman's voice. He instantly hung up on me. So I called his phone, but he wouldn't answer. In fact, he turned his phone off. It wasn't until 4 days later that he actually showed up to my apartment apologizing. He said his phone broke and that he couldn't get one while he was in the Bahamas. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend went on vacation with his ex behind my back. Should I break up with him? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. After 4 days of not hearing from my stupid boyfriend who was in the Bahamas, finally showed up to my apartment to apologize. I told him not to even bother because I knew that he was with his ex. Then he said, "You're right. I'm not even gonna lie to you." Then he came up with this whole story. He clearly had 4 days to think about it. Told me that his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend died and that she was in need of his help. She asked him to go to the Bahamas to spread her boyfriend's ashes. And of course, being the gentleman that he is, he said yeah. And that the only reason he didn't tell me was because he didn't want me to get jealous. So I asked him to confirm his story. I told him to call his ex and put her on speaker, and he refused. He said that I was being toxic and that doing that to his poor ex would bring up all the feelings she had from her boyfriend's death, and that she was grieving and I needed to respect her space. Gaslighting much? I told him I wouldn't believe him and then I kicked him out. He told me I was being so insensitive towards him. So I asked his ex on Instagram if the whole story was true. She hasn't opened the message and I'm still waiting for her to reply. It's been a few days since that happened and my boyfriend keeps coming back to my apartment with flowers and champagne. He keeps apologizing and asking me not to break up with him. I know you're all thinking I should just leave him, but I really love him. And maybe the story is true. He shouldn't have lied. I can't confirm his story. What should I do? My boyfriend thinks I'm disgusting for having periods and refuses to touch me or even have sexy time. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have only been dating for 3 months. We met on a dating app. He works in financing and I own my own business. He's 28 and I'm 22. But he is so not mature. When we first met, he came across as a really intelligent guy. After 6 dates, he asked me if I wanted to be his girlfriend and I said yes. I did feel like he was rushing into it a little bit, but I decided to take the risk. A few days after he asked me to be his girlfriend, I mentioned to him that I was going to get off the pill. I was having a lot of hormonal problems and the pill was probably causing it, and I knew that this was going to make my periods really heavy again. Well, when I said this to him, he said, "Wow, that's disgusting." Then he said, "My ex never had periods because she was always on the pill." Isn't that impossible? He was just lying to make me feel bad. And I literally sat there in the restaurant explaining to him why periods happen and why they are important. By the end of the conversation, he said it was still gross and that he wouldn't want to touch me when I was on it in case he got blood on him. Then he brought up his ex again. He said that she was always so clean. I got up from the table and I walked away. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend told me I'm disgusting for getting my period and he refuses to touch me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It's me on Instagram. The following day, he called me and asked me if I still had my period. I told him no and he said, "Okay, then I can come over." When he came over to my apartment, I asked him what was his problem with periods. He told me that it was disgusting and that women should try to get rid of them. Then he started insisting on me taking the pill again so that I could stop having periods. I told him he had no right over my body and that I would do whatever I wanted. He ended up going home and we didn't speak for a few days. He finally calls me and tells me that he's sorry for calling me disgusting. But this time I actually had my period. So when he came over, I wanted to test him. I kissed him and told him that I wanted to do it. Then he said, "Okay." I told him I had to go to the bathroom to remove my pad. Then he said, "Are you for real? That's so gross. Why would you invite me over knowing that you have your period?" Then he said that he wouldn't come near me with a 10-foot pole. Yeah, this 28-year-old man said that. Then he told me that I probably smell really bad down there and that I should probably go take a shower right away. I didn't even know what to say to him. I opened my front door and I stood there. And he left. An hour later, he posts on his story that he's at a club with his friends. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend says that I'm disgusting for getting periods and he refuses to touch me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I sent me on Instagram. He posted a story that he was at a club. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, so I didn't ask him anything. A few hours later, I check his story again, and he's partying with all these random girls at the club. I asked him who they were, and he said they were just girls that he met at the club. I was so angry, I just turned off my phone. At 2 in the morning, he shows up to my apartment drunk. He actually apologized, but ended up falling asleep on my couch. The next day, I thanked him for apologizing, and he said, "What apology?" I said, "You came over last night and apologized." He said, "No, I didn't. I would never have done that. I still think your periods are gross." I started to cry and he told me that I was overreacting. For the past 3 months, it's been like this. Every time I'm on my period, he refuses to even hang out with me. I told him a few weeks ago that I needed him to change because I needed his support when I had my period. He told me that he just couldn't do it. So I took to Instagram and got in contact with his ex. And I asked her if it was really true that she never got periods. She told me no, that it wasn't true and that he was just disgusted with periods in general. She told me that I shouldn't take it personally and that he also made her life a living hell whenever she got her period. Then she told me that he cheated on her several times when she had her period. Apparently it was just like a hall pass for him. So now I'm thinking about breaking up with him. When I'm not on my periods, we have a great time. But I want someone who will love me and support me no matter what. What should I do? Storytime about how my creepy uncle flirts with me. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime. Send me on Instagram. I come from a really big family. My mom has 5 sisters and 1 brother, and my dad has 4 brothers and sisters. All of them have their own kids, so I have a lot of cousins. And this means we have a lot of family get-togethers. Every single weekend, someone is hosting a party. We all get together and eat, and it's actually a really nice time. But there's always that one creepy uncle. In my case, it's my mom's brother. He's 46-year-old and has never married, but he's a bachelor. He's got money, so he basically has a bunch of sugar babies. Whenever my family tells him that he needs to get married, he says he'll never get married to anybody. He thinks women only exist for the pleasure of men. When I turned 16, I noticed that he would stare at me a lot. At first, it was just staring. Every now and again, he never did anything really creepy then, but just the staring was enough for me. I never told my mom about it then, not until I turned 18. This is when he started making comments like, wow, you're growing into your body, or wow, you got great hips. He would make comments about how I was growing up, like, ew. He even told my dad that he needed to keep me away from guys because I was growing up really quickly. And because of my curves, men would think that I was a woman. This is when I finally told my mom that he was making me super uncomfortable. She thought it was funny at first, so I avoided him at all costs. Part 2. Storytime about how my creepy uncle flirts with me. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime. It's me on Instagram. When I told my mom that he was making me super uncomfortable, she laughed it off. She thought it was funny. She said, oh, you know how he is. So from that point on, I basically avoided my uncle every time we were at a family event. When I turned 20, this is when things got even worse. He would ask me things like if I was a virgin, or if I had a boyfriend, if I had ever been on dates. And one time he even told me that he would get very jealous if I ended up bringing a guy to one of our family events. One time he complimented me on the dress that I was wearing, so after that, I only wore baggy clothes to family events. The fact that I had to change the way that I dress so that he could control himself makes me sick. I finally told my mom again that my uncle was always bothering me. It's when she told me that the world is filled with men like him, and that all I needed to do was just ignore him. So I told my dad everything. My dad took it a little more seriously and told my uncle that he needed to stop making comments. My uncle just laughed. Part 3 is up. Storytime about how my creepy uncle flirts with me. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime. Send me on Instagram. I finally told my dad and he told my uncle to stop making comments. My uncle just laughed and told my dad that he was overreacting, and that all he said to me was that I was a pretty girl. What a liar. In part 1 and 2, I told you guys that it was getting worse, but here's where it actually gets even worse. Like I said, I have a really big family, so my cousins are growing up too. One of them just turned 13 and my uncle cannot stop staring at her. She's maturing a lot quicker than most 13-year-olds. He's already staring at her. So here's what I did. At the next family event, I sat right next to him. Every time he would stare at one of my cousins or try to make a comment at me, I called him out for it in front of everybody. I even recorded the things that he said. The fact that I even have to do this at a family event makes me sick. Instead of enjoying my time with my family, I have to sit next to my creepy uncle policing him. Anyway, it's totally worth it though. I'm making sure that my cousins don't feel uncomfortable. After I had enough recordings of him saying nasty things, at the next family event, I showed it to my grandma. I basically played it for the entire family. My grandma told him that he couldn't come to any more events if he was going to behave that way. And of course, he apologized to everyone right away. But not to me, he apologized to my dad. After his half-ass apology, he was let back into family events. I don't think that's enough punishment. Give me some ideas because I think I deserve justice. Creepy uncle.
Am I an asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just to keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for almost 5 years. Granted, we did break up throughout those 5 years. With all the breakups, we've actually been together for about 3 years. I've never considered myself an obsessive person, but when it comes to him, something just takes over me. Here's some of the reasons why we broke up. At first, he didn't want to be in a relationship even though I begged him, which I know was so dumb of me. So he eventually broke up with me and told me that he didn't want anything serious. But he kept on calling me every single week because he wanted the dirty. Instead, I started going out on other dates and I would flaunt it all over my social media. And this worked. It made him super jealous and he came right back to me. Called me up one day and told me that he wanted me back. The second time we broke up, I caught him talking to some girls on Facebook. When I confronted him, he broke up with me. Told me I was too nosy and that he needed to live his life as a single man. We finally got back together. I told him that it was for marriage. He said yes, that he would eventually ask me to marry him. A few months ago, he started acting really cold towards me. He would barely call me and when we were together, he would never touch me. That's when I started digging in his phone and I found that he was talking to some girls on Instagram. But I knew that if I confronted him, I would risk him breaking up with me again. So I did the next logical thing. I waited until I saw him again and I told him that I was pregnant. I even started to cry to make him feel like I was happy. His face turned completely white and he asked me if I was sure. I said, yes, aren't you happy, baby? Part 2 is up. Am I the asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just so that I could keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. Send me on Instagram. That's when he started to cry. Remember, I don't even have a pregnancy test to show or anything, but surprisingly, he didn't ask for proof of my pregnancy. He just kept crying on the couch. I asked him if he was happy, but clearly he was not. But he lied and said, yeah, of course I'm happy. Seeing how vulnerable he was, I took advantage of the situation and I brought up marriage. I told him we should get engaged soon so that we could tell his family. Then he said, are you sure you want to get married? And I said, of course, we're gonna have a baby. Then he sat there for a minute and thought about it. Finally, he got down on one knee and said, do you want to marry me? I said yes! And this time I cried for real. All my dreams were coming true. After that, things started moving really fast. We invited both our families to my apartment and we hosted a dinner. We broke the news to them that I was pregnant. Again, nobody asked for proof of the pregnancy though. Our families were so happy and excited. That very same night, he gave me a beautiful engagement ring. His mom even started planning the baby shower. Let me remind you, I'm actually not pregnant. So I had to come up with a plan. You'll never guess what I did. Part 3 is up. Am I an asshole for lying to my boyfriend about being pregnant just to keep him in a relationship? Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent me on Instagram. His mom started planning the baby shower and there was no turning back. Even my mom got involved in the planning of the baby shower. So like I said, I'm really not pregnant at this point. So I started trying to get pregnant, but my damn boyfriend just wouldn't touch me. I decided to check his phone again and saw that he was still talking to some girls on Instagram. So I decided to confront him at this point. I mean, we are engaged and I'm supposedly pregnant with his baby. I confronted him and he just got angry at me. He said that if he was gonna marry me and have a baby with me, he would need to talk to other girls and that was not a negotiation for him. Then he confessed that he was seeing 2 other girls on the side and that there was no way he was gonna stop seeing them and that I couldn't do anything about it. But his confession actually made me fall out of love with him. Now I'm planning to break up with him. But what do I do about the fake pregnancy? I do want to make him pay for what he said to me, but I don't want to hurt our families either. Should I just come clean? What should I do?